everyone, welcome to the Uke Stuff and Tech in Music Ed channels. Today I'm on location at my school and I want to demonstrate something for you. I'm going to show you what this is. This is a full review of this instrument, but inside here is a piano. I have had the opportunity to review a couple other Vangoa pianos and ultimately I like them. Again, keyboards, not really pianos, keyboards is what I'd say. One of those keyboards had Bluetooth low energy MIDI, which is something that really appeals to me as an iPad and iOS user. Also as a Mac user, you can connect wirelessly with MIDI from your keyboard to your device. And then the other one did not, but could be plugged in with the right sort of cable. So this is, I believe, an 88 key keyboard. So let me show it to you. So you unzip this nice case, comes in a great case, and you get a music holder, which I'm not going to use at this moment. I'm just going to put that to the side because I don't need it at the moment. And then you get your keyboard in here, and you take a look and you say, oh my goodness, it's folded in half, and it is. It's designed to be folded in half. Now there's also a pocket on the bag where I have some accessories, and I'll pull those out in a moment. But what you do is you just take your keyboard and you fold it out slowly. It locks into place, and then on the other side, there's a little tab here for an extra bit of support that I'm keeping in that front pocket. So let me do that. Get that piece out. By the way, in the pocket, I have this adapter for headphones or an output jack. And I also have a USB-C adapter cord, which is, I need it for charging, but it's nice that it charges on USB-C. And a foot pedal with a 1/8 inch connection. But then also in here, I have this little plastic tab, and that just goes right into that little hole there to give it some extra support. So you've got the whole thing flat, and now it's pretty sturdy, especially as the force comes up underneath it. To turn it on, there is a power button right over here, and then it has buttons to choose tone, to choose a demo, to record and play, or to do a metronome. And that is all pretty cool because when you press that button and the dial and turn the dial, it changes things. So compared to the other Vangoas that I looked at that had lots and lots of buttons, this one has a turning volume button, which is great, but that also acts as a selector, and a small LCD screen on it as well. So I'm going to set this up just a bit higher so you can see it. When I play a key, there's a little light that lights up, if you can see that in the video. So right off the bat, what does it sound like? It has touch-sensitive keys. Of course, there's a limit. And it's a moderate volume. Here's as loud as it'll go. And as soft as it'll go, which is basically nothing. So it's a moderate volume. It has speakers, as you can see, there's one on that end and one on that end. It's not a bad sound at all. It's not going to be the world's greatest sound, and you could patch the sound out in the back if you wanted to, because you have jacks in the back for your sustain, MP3 in, microphone, headphones, and then of course a USB connection in the back. I'll let you see those up close like that. So ultimately, decent sound. Now you can change the tones by holding the tone button and then changing the button here. So I'm going to go up a little bit. Here's the harpsichord. Right? You could go a little further with tone and switching to music box. Or tone again to something else like, oh, here's xylophone. So lots of sounds you can play with too. It does have some demos and different demos that you can choose. So if I hold down the demo button, I can choose different. Let me hit the demo button again and stop it. You also have a metronome that you can start. So you've got these 4 buttons across the top: tone, demo, record, play, and metronome. If I long press the volume button, then I get a bunch of other settings that I can use. So I can press and hold, and then it will bring up a tempo display. If I click it again, I can change the tempo up or down with the volume button. If I haven't clicked it a second time, I can toggle through pitch, raising things up by a half step or lower it. I can turn on split. And what does split do? Well, what split does is it puts 2 separate keyboards in one. So for like a classroom setting where you didn't have enough keyboards for your whole class, you could buy one of these and have one student on one side and one student on the other, rather than having a full keyboard. That's pretty neat. Other settings here are chords. You can turn chords on that you could play with one finger. You can go into the learn mode, which will help you learn the songs in the demo area. There is sustain. You can turn that off or on. Of course, if you have the pedal plugged in, that would work as well. There's vibrato that you can add, and there's also a drum kit that you can turn on and off. You can change the velocity, and right now the sleep mode is on. If I don't use it for very long, it'll power off. And as it's a self-contained battery, there is no wires on this piano, which is another benefit. When I use the keyboards here at my own school, we have a keyboard lab, actually we have 3 of them that travel between our 17 elementary schools. When we use those, we have wires all over the place. Well, here you would need to charge it, but then you'd have functionality for a long time, and if the keyboards weren't being used, they would turn off. How does that little, by the way, music stand hold? Well, there are 2 holes on the top, and that music holder has 2 prongs on it, and they just go in the holes, and then you have a music holder for your piano as well. So that's all very, very nice. Now really, my only complaint of the entire thing is that this strap attaches sort of in a weird spot. I wish it would have attached on top, because when you carry it then, it sort of flops over this way as a bag, and that's really the only truly negative thing to say about it. And again, I think the accessories are pretty self-explanatory. You'd plug this one in to get your sustain pedal going. This one, I believe, you would plug into your headphones to perhaps go to a large headphone jack. You might even be able to use this as the volume out to send the sound out to, for example, an external speaker. And of course, you have the USB-C patch cord. Now, truly, for me, as a music educator and as a music technology person that isn't a piano player primarily, mostly I play ukulele, or I sing, or I play tuba. Piano is definitely a secondary or tertiary instrument for me. I can use it if I need to, but generally it's not my go-to instrument. For that, this instrument has Bluetooth low energy MIDI, which is fantastic. So I am opening up my iPad here, and I'm going to the app GarageBand. This is a great way just to demonstrate what it can do. So here I am, opening up GarageBand. I'm just gonna create a song here. I'm gonna click it, and I'm just gonna choose keyboard for now. I don't need to, but whatever. And if I go over to the gear icon, and I click that, if I go to advanced on this menu, I can see Bluetooth MIDI devices. When I select that, I will see automatically here a keyboard labeled GZUT-MIDI, input output, not connected. Because it's on, if I click it, it is connecting, and it's connected. That's all I had to do. I didn't have to go to any Bluetooth settings, and I had to find it. This is the joy of Bluetooth low energy MIDI. And to prove it, I'm gonna turn the volume all the way down on this keyboard. Now I'm gonna turn up the volume on my iPad. That's coming out of my iPad. Latency is pretty low. Recently, I reviewed another piano from Vangoa, and somebody else had reviewed it as well, and they were complaining about the latency with Bluetooth low energy MIDI. For me, it's almost not a factor. I suppose you might have to quantize your settings if you're doing like recording to notation, and I'll show you that in a second too. But we are connected right from this keyboard to the iPad without any problems whatsoever. It would work in a similar way with Mac, although sometimes with Mac you actually have to go into the MIDI settings and find it. But with an iPad or an iPhone, it'd be instantaneous. And here's the benefit. If you don't necessarily love the sounds of the Vangoa folding keyboard, I mean, they're good sounds. I'm not complaining about the sounds. I'm not complaining about the volume or anything. But if you don't like the fact that that doesn't sound like a classical piano, you could buy one of those classical apps. I mean, GarageBand's Piano for Starters is a really good sounding grand piano, although you can buy full samples of Steinways and everything else. You could just connect to that. And if you didn't like any delay whatsoever, you could actually connect it via cable to your computer. You would need a camera connection kit to do that with an iPad, and you could potentially do with an iPhone too. So that's all pretty cool, that all is built in, and I love it for that. I love the fact that it's portable, you can bring it with you. Are there any negatives about it? Well, let's just go over them. It's not weighted keys. So if you're expecting a keyboard and you want weighted keys, this is not going to be the option for you. Some people would be concerned about the folding nature of it. I think it's going to be fine, especially as you have natural force that pushes the keyboard up in the middle, especially like if you were on a keyboard stand or whatever. You do want to be a little cautious. You don't want to break it intentionally. Yeah, you could do one of those over your leg and snap it in half. This really isn't a keyboard for a pro. It's definitely a keyboard for somebody that has a studio that they're working on with MIDI projects. They need to get MIDI into, for example, music notation or to do some sequencing. This would absolutely be a absolute feasible instrument for that, as long as you're relying on sounds from other instruments to do that. And it would be great for education. So no complaints whatsoever. I mean, this is pretty cool. Full-size keys, which is nice. It has the lighted keys, which is a nice feature to have as you're learning music. For me, I'm not so worried about that. I never had light up keys when I was growing up, but kids today might really benefit from being able to see a lighted key and follow it on a keyboard. So yeah, very, very little to say negative about this idea. I really like the updated controls, and that's all pretty nice. So that is the Vangoa foldable keyboard. Check it out. It's a nice piece of tech at a pretty affordable price that could really work well with your workflow as a music educator, or if you have a child learning how to play piano. And I think the controls are light times better than the other Vangoa keyboards that I checked out that were already decent. They were decent. Anything that has Bluetooth MIDI LE and connects to your iPad for me or your Mac is a benefit. Do they also connect to Windows? Some. You have to check out how your machine works with Bluetooth LE MIDI for your device. Some Chromebooks will too, and of course there are products you can buy like the Woody Bud that will let them understand this keyboard or intercept those if they don't naturally have that. All Macs and iPads and iPhones for at least the last 10 years have had that technology built right into it. Now, what if you want to do music notation? I'm not going to show you on a Mac right now, but I'm just going to show you on an iPad, for example. So I'm going to open up the app Notion. Notion is an app that I've used for a long time. There are a couple really good music notation app programs on the iPad, but I'm going to create a document here, and I'm going to choose just a standard. I'm just going to choose the instruments and go through and add a piano. Here we go. And now I've got a score ready to go here. And then I'm going to go down to my settings and make sure that my Bluetooth MIDI devices that I am connected, which I still am. And then as I play, it's going to transcribe what I play. And I have a couple different options. So what I'm going to do is hit the record button, and I'm going to choose count in bars 2, minimum velocity, so forth. I'm just going to let that all be standard. I'm going to hit start recording. 1, 2, ready, go. I'm going to let it go and stop it. and look at how it transcribed what I did there. Now, sometimes like values aren't going to come across. The other thing I can do is I can do step notation. So I can click in a measure and I can choose, right now it's at quarter notes, and whatever I play together should notate. So here's a C chord. It added it. Here's an F chord in its second inversion, G chord in its second inversion, and a C chord in its first inversion. And I can add music that way as well. And if I want to add different values, then I'd have to choose different values. Now that's just Notion. There are some other apps that will allow transcription, but this is just showing you sort of how that works. So yeah, I'm very, very happy about this keyboard. It's really well suited for the work that I would do. I can haul this around with me. It's not ginormous. It isn't light, mind you. It isn't light, but it's not ginormous. It's made to travel, and it's really good to work on stuff wherever you're at. So kind of nice. You can bring a whole size keyboard with full size keys with you and interact with your device, iPad, iPhone, MacBook, maybe Windows, maybe Chromebook, depending on the device and what it's set up with. All right, thanks so much for joining me on this review of this Vangoa keyboard.